And hello everyone, and welcome to a new kind of project video, like series, where we discuss some of the hardest hitting, most deepest mysteries of all video game kinded maybe. So for this first foyer into this, I thought to do on this topic, in which me and a commenter started talking about briefly, about what do the wisps do inside of Sonic but not in use. So without any further ado, let us just get straight into it. But first, let us talk about what the wisps are in general. The wisps debuted in, as you know, Sonic Colors, and they are an alien species from planet Wisps. Their leader and mother is the Mother Wisps, birthed them all and whatnot, save for the Nega Wisps, since the Nega Wisps are what you get when they're drained of their energies and whatnot. And when they go inside people, i.e. Sonic, Knuckles, Tails, Amy, blah 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 blah, they give them fantastical abilities, like becoming a living laser, becoming and manipulating these blue blocks, spike, fire, gravitic powers, the whole nine. It's actually pretty cool and interesting how these creatures have these kind of abilities and their origins. And that's what Eggman kind of wanted, their power, this life force of theirs called Hyper Goons. That's what kind of kicked off the whole evil plot in Sonic Colors. Eggman went to their home planet using the tractor beam generators kind of deal and ripped the planets from their orbit to make his interstellar grand amusement park. And from there, Sonic and Tails went on the entire amusement park, defeating the enemies, defeating the generators, releasing the wisps, and freeing them so that they can return home. And in the DS version, we get the Mother Wisp, and in the console/Steam version, we defeat Eggman being empowered by all the wisps using Final Color Blaster, and in the DS version, we beat the Mother Wisp, or the Nega Mother Wisp, because she was drained of all of her Hyper Goons, which is what happens when a wisp gets drained of Hyper Goons. They become a Nega Wisp, and with that power that they have, they're still Hyper Goons, it's still like that kind of energy, but it's all like negative and whatnot. And what are exactly Hyper Goons, since we'll be talking about them again, since it's the power source of the wisps and kind of what they confer onto the people in which they kind of merge with. Well, Hyper Goons is this special kind of energy that is essentially the wisp's life force. They need it to live, they generate it, they can manipulate it, they can become it, they can do kind of whatever that crap they want with it within their parameters. Like the Cyan Wisp becomes a laser, Pink Wisp spikes, the Indigo Wisp, if I'm not mistaken, becomes all like gravitic planet looking thing, and so on and so forth. The Nega Wisps are what happened when they, like I said before, drained of their Hyper Goon energies, which doesn't really stop them from being themselves. They keep their personalities, they just become purple and ravenous. But that's kind of also gets into that which is empty takes to be filled. Now this is like a negative, more empty version of their power, their life force, their ability, and that is reflected in the Void and the Frenzy, in which Frenzy eats a bunch of things to get fuller and bigger, and Void sucks in a bunch of things to get bigger and fuller. It's the same thing, but they're just trying to recharge, re-energize themselves. Not too dissimilar to, I'm going to make a reference to another series, the Naru from World of Warcraft, yes. Because when they're drained of their life, they become Void Naru, and potentially, as we've seen, and they get recharged with light, they become regular Naru again, not too dissimilar. Nega Wisps and Wisps are two halves of the same coin. So yeah, so again, still Hyper Goons, but negatively charged for Nega Wisps, and then regular Hyper Goons, which is positively charged, life-affirming energies in which we see them have to run around and jump and play and all other stuff. Alright, let's get into the meat and potatoes. Let's start beginning to answer the question, because we've got covered Hyper Goons, the energy that which they confer. They're made of energy. In fact, when they're actively use their powers in use, they become beings of pure energy, pure Hyper Goons, as it is described. And with that, they again do all the fantastical things. So when they go into Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, whatever, when they use their abilities, they become a laser, whatever, but they become beings of like pure energy, you know, they just become pure energy. But that is only using a fragment of the life force, because if you pay attention, once the chapter ends, I think in Sonic Colors, or it's explained somewhere, we see in the cutscene, the wisp leaves them, kind of, because it's only showing a fragment of their ability, because we saw if they use too much to become a Nega Wisp, they invert and become Nega, and then they're empty, instinctively filled, so they'll have Frenzy or Void or something like that. So now the question is, what kind of happens if the wisp just is in Sonic, in Tails, in Knuckles, whoever, but isn't being used? Well, we see if you look at the little icon down there in Sonic Colors, And even in Sonic Lost World, in Sonic Colors, what happened is the eye kind of closes, almost as if it's kind of nodding off or whatever, because it's in there, but nothing's really happening. So as he's merged, they've merged with Sonic, Knuckles, Tails, or whoever, but they're not in use, so they just kind of take a few Z's, get some sleep. And in Sonic Lost World, we just see them explicitly just going to sleep. Like, they're just zeroed out, like conked out. And it's just, I guess that's it, right? Video over, wrap up, go home. When not in use, nothing really happens, So yeah, that's kind of sort of it. But then why is there more video? Because I don't think that's it. Because if you pay attention to the first time Sonic uses Cyan, he's like, whoa! Like he's having a rush of something going into him. And even when not in use, he still gets that rush of power. I think that what happens is, and this is purely conjecture, but based on the circumstantial evidence that I have found, I think this is appropriate. And then even when not in use, they do confer a small kind of power boost. Again, Sonic felt the rush of power the first time he used Cyan. He's like, well, that was incredible, kind of deal. That was really awesome. And that was just him merging, and then he went into laser, and Tails didn't even really notice, but hey, that's his Tails. And further evidence to kind of sort of support this in another game would be the Sonic Colors DS version, where in the script, when Sonic the very first time, he absorbs the white wisps, right? He feels like squishy, so his chest, he's like, whoa, this is insane, this is incredible, how kind of powerful, energized, right? When Tails is like, oh, well, I mean, you're always supercharged, what makes this so different? How can you hear the difference? And it sounds like it's not like this is different. Implying that even when they're not doing anything, because he has yet to use the boost, he has yet to use anything like that, he is still being charged by it in some capacity, in some way. And in another medium would be in the Sonic IDW comics. More specifically, when Surge is fighting Whisper the Wolf, and Surge is out of power, because the dynamo cage in that issue gives her a lot of power, but it drains it pretty quickly. So she was out, so she began to absorb the wisps around Whisper, and immediately she's like, whoa! She's like, almost looking like going Super Saiyan or some crap, like some straight out of Dragon Ball Z. But despite the color of the ore and everything, she isn't using their abilities yet. It just confers a power increase and a power boost onto their abilities, onto their base form, their base stats kind of deal. And that's what I think it confers a small kind of boost. But I only think about how can we be certain that their powers and abilities aren't being used? Well, we see when she does use her powers and abilities, we'll see it glows the one color of the wisp. Like if she uses multiple, as we see, she uses all of them, including Cyan. But when she's using blue blocks, right? She glow blue and blocks will appear. If she's using Cyan laser, lasers will shoot from her eyes, but she'll be completely cyan. And if she's using orange rocket, she'll become orange, pink, she'll become pink, and using the rocket, and she'll be using the saws. So I think that's a visual indicator as to what really happens. So her powers aren't actively in use, but they are there. They've charged her with energy, because they become pure energy when they merge with someone, because their very essence is Hyper Gohan, their very essence, that life force of theirs, which in an unused line, I think from Sonic Colors, I think from the DS version of Sonic Colors, what it is described that Hyper Gohans are even more powerful than the Chaos Emerald. And we see what happens when Sonic uses the Chaos Emerald, Shadow uses the Chaos Emerald. They have a rush of power, glowing, additional abilities, additional power. So I think with that comparison, although as non-canon as that line is, because that was omitted, again, it was an unused line, I think we're getting more evidence to show it is a kind of, even when not in use, it is a just flat out increase to their power. Again, a further similar example from Sonic Unleashed, when Sonic merges with the essence of Dark Gaia, more like infused with the essence of Dark Gaia, and becomes the Werehog. He may not be as fast because he's way down, but he's visibly bigger and stronger. He can actually, when he builds enough Dark Gaia energy, become invincible. In his Unleashed mode, glows a different color, he gets burlier, scarier, blah, 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 blah. Again, one example of something similar. When Shadow absorbs enough energy, I guess from the light cores or chaos drives, like in 06, he can go into Chaos Boost and become, the manual says invincible, but I'll not get into all of that because she just freaking wasn't. That game was, so when I hear talking about that game, though, we're here talking about the wisps, and I'm just drawing comparisons to other kind of power-ups. That's what they are. At the end of the day, they're power-ups. And what I'm doing right now is more conjecture, but I think I have enough evidence to support, at least there's a good argument to be made that they are more than just simple, they do nothing in there. They're just kind of taking a nap, relaxing, having a sandwich or whatever. Because of everything that we see what happens when these things merge with other life forms and beings. right, they gain a lot of power. Another example of this are the badniks themselves. I know what you're thinking, what do you want about? The badniks are machines that are fueled by like diesel and electrical, like giant batteries, right? We've seen me bust open egg ponds, bust open gun robots, bust open other Eggman robots. They don't have anything remotely similar to a wisp. What are you talking about? What do you want about? That's impossible. You're making crap up. Well, I mean, if you go, you know, back in time, all the way in the old Sonic games, in the before times, right? Eggman would use flickies, tiny animals, as it were, to fuel his machines. What do you mean fuel the machines? How is that possible? Well, these flickies he would put in his machines would be draining them of their life force, their very essence. Again, using these creatures and draining them of their power to fuel something. There's power in that. Eggman knows that. Sonic knows that. But Eggman is doing it forcefully, and Sonic is doing it willingly, where the wisps are concerned. I don't think Sonic has ever gotten power from a flicky. I know Tails has empowered flickies with the Chaos Emerald energies to be in his super form, but that's neither here nor there right now. But again, it's similar concept there. Add power to it, but we don't think about that. Again, E102, what is it? Gamma. We see him in base, right? That's just his base, but he's fueled by the bird. He's fueled by a flicky, and that gives him combat prowess that I wouldn't say is on par, but close to and relative to Sonic's. More specifically, Gamma from Sonic Adventure, because the Gamma from Sonic Battle is a different kind of Gamma. I think we're cycling using older Gamma's parts, but none of his memories, so he's not the same kind of Gamma, so we can't equate the two of them together. That one's fueled by, I think, Chaos Emerald shards and not flickies or anything of the sort. So again, two different Gammas we're talking about, but again, point still stands. Eggman is taking small creatures with a powerful energy, putting them in a machine to fuel it to give it power. I believe that is what's happening. And even when they're being passive, the wisps, and are purportedly asleep, docile, not doing anything, they actually confer a kind of power boost onto Sonic, onto Knuckles, Tails, Shadow, whomever is freaking doing it at the time, merging with the wisps. Because again, the wisps in themselves never give all their power to any one person. They become nega, or they could just potentially die. I think they've become nega because we saw when they're drained of all their hyper-going energy, they become nega wisps, and then Eggman, I think, just kind of gets rid of them, since his machines aren't really designed to use like negative hyper go on energies. You would think he would use them until they're completely drained, because it would go from like positive to negative, then they'd just be dead. But we don't really see that. But I digress. He drains them of their energy to fuel his machines, to fuel his ambition, to fuel like the tractor beams, to do all these other things. It's the same thing with the mother wisp. It's the same thing. She's just too big to be shoved into a robot or merge with a person. It took Supersonic to beat her. But anyway, believe that despite their docile appearance or nature, when they initially merge with someone, even when not in use, they do confer a small kind of boost to their power, a gain to them. That's why they have their own gauge. That's why what happened again. No, the white wisp. The gauge in the bottom of the boost from Sonic Colors fills. They're not in use, but that gauge fills. They are giving Sonic power. They are giving Sonic energy to boost. That's what the white wisps do, and as such, with that, I believe that the other wisps do the same thing. They still have their own little gauge for it, like the white wisps do, to be able to convey this passive gain of energy, since their whole point and purpose of the wisp in the actual game series is to be the new like items, like replacing like the TVs and item boxes and item jars from other Sonic games. So instead of getting like a fire barrier, you'd get red burst, or instead of getting the ring magnet, you'd get ivory lightning. So I think that's also why we don't really see a whole bunch, because we get the passive side of them, the passive gain of power in the form of the white wisp, and the boost gauge is the active use of power, and everyone else just kind of are a hard way to translate that without just using their abilities. So they just kind of keep them stagnant and stationary, not doing anything, because that would take a lot more programming, a lot more engineering. But hey, I think it'd be really cool to see the passive gains of power that they would afford. And if you want to get particular, you could also say that the avatar abilities and power from Sonic Forces with the wisp bonds could also be a representation of the passive power, but it seems more active to me, and that's a bit too far of a stretch. In fact, no, I just actually remembered this part. I actually didn't write down, just remembered it. Eggman does use the negative hyper go on entities in his mind control device. That's what he was using to be able to mind control Tails, where he wanted to use to mind control the world, the black smoke. And because when it punctured, the thing got punctured and it became the black hole when you tried to activate again, that's like the void, the black hole, that's the connection. They can still use that energy because it's still hyper go on energy. It can still be granted, it can still do things even when it's not active effectively, like in use, he still does things like that. The last point I kind of wanted to make was, and this is a bit more out there, in that if you look at something like the dialogue from Sonic Colors, the DS version, when Sonic absorbs the wisps, it seems like they can also almost transfer some of their emotions or maybe state of mind to him. You really only get this in the part with the Nega Wisp, the Void Wisp, and that we said when it's mad and Sonic, when it goes into Sonic, he's like, fine, I think I can play rough too, kind of deal. And then the Cyan Wisp with the laser one, where he's like, you know, he's a hothead, but I know when to slow down or cool down and what. But that's a bit more out there, but I think on some level they can kind of sort of transfer their at least basic emotions. I mean, it isn't too dissimilar to, again, Sonic Unleashed with Dark Guy, another kind of living energy, where when Dark Guy's energy went to other people who weren't Sonic, he started making them all despondent and very unhappy and whatnot. Sonic could resist that because his will is just that strong, which I can kind of sort of see where they're coming from, of why they wouldn't have their mindset overtake Sonic even here. But again, that's conjecture, because you don't really see that anywhere else. So again, I'm just speculating here. Oh, that's kind of all I kind of have on is, so in summary, when passively it is obtained, it does confer a small boost, a small kind of power to it. Just chilling in there because they've added their effective life force onto another beings, onto another entities. And when actively in use, you know, we have the color powers and whatnot and things and such. So with all that being said, thank you for listening to me have my crackpot harebrained theory that I kind of went down a rabbit hole to find because I was really interested in this. And again, thank you, commenter. I think it was a Fatal Waffle who posed the question to me. So thank you very much, because that was really interesting to look into. So thank any and all of you for watching. I'll see you all next time on another episode if I do this again, which I probably will. All right, peace.